Switch to portrait. Let me see what that is. Oh, okay. I think we're live. Okay. So we start every time we come out here to live stream. Not live stream. This is restream. What happens is get here about 10 minutes ahead of time. And then there's this big announcement from Restream. Hey, we've made some changes. We know you're kind of busy, but you should watch them. And I'm like, no, I'm not. I'm not watching them. And I click the X, and then we start, and there's always a stupid issue.
You gotta love technology.
Yeah. I'm actually now like on the downslide as far as technology is concerned. It's like, I know all the technology I know, and I really don't want to know anymore, so I'm good.
Right. I know. And then it keeps changing, and then what you do is nothing.
And I'm going to be like one of those, get off my lawn.
Although, I don't know, maybe they won't be walking anymore to even be on your lawn.
I don't know. But anyway, so the topic that we're going to talk about tonight is how do you know when it's time? When it's time to let go of a pet, okay? And I don't mean dump off the side of the corner. I mean, they're older. It's time to let them go. Just so we're kind of clear on that, okay? So, and I think it can be very individual, and it can be a really, really hard decision. But if we separate this into like our professional lives as pet professionals and personal life, because that's two different scenarios, right? So as a pet groomer, I'm seeing a pet, let's just say on average, every 6 weeks. And in 6 weeks can be a lot of time in between for changes to happen. All right, which an owner may not know, because I know when we had Baby was our Chihuahua, and Baby, we let go. He was 16 years old, and we probably could have let him go about a year earlier than that, and I would have been okay with that. However, he was my husband's dog. He was the shining light in his eyes, and it took him. He had a hard time letting go.
It's hard. It's
So
hard.
it was way past Baby's expiration date. Baby, hang on there, because his daddy needed him. But he was ignoring all the signs that it was really time to go. Okay, that even me, who saw him every single day, picked up quite some time ago. Okay, but like I said, Baby was my husband's dog. Right, I was okay. Okay. I was there to feed him if Daddy wasn't around. He'd sit with me if Daddy wasn't around. He's like Pooh right here. Okay. But when we took him to the vet, I literally could have taken my husband from the vet's office to the ER because he was in shock.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So you can have varied reactions to this. Okay, for my like a husband, I mean, he was literally, you could see it, he was in shock that Baby was no longer there. Could he used medical attention? We didn't, but he could have. Right? So for me, and it was like, well, you know what, we should have done this a while ago. More relief on my part, and I loved him just as much as my husband did. But that's two different reactions to a dog, a personal dog, being put down.
Mm-hmm.
The clients sometimes, and it's a hard conversation to have with owners. I never wanted to be the person to tell an owner, hey, what are you doing? You have got to let this dog or this cat go. I didn't want to ever do that. So that is a hard conversation to have with a pet owner.
Very hard. It's really hard, and what makes it even harder is everybody processes grief differently. And a lot of times it's easier, like you said, on a professional level to see it. And then when it's your own, it's, everything is out the window. And as a professional, you have a lot of your clients that come to you because they want to know, when is it time? They're asking. They're asking for advice, when to know when it's time. And I understand that aspect of it because, like I said, when it's your own, it's really hard because the emotional side of it really gets in the way. But it does make that really hard as a pet professional to kind of give that guidance. And I always just usually tell my clients, and some of them know what I'm saying, but usually they will let you know.
Well, I this live. All right, so feedback coming from. Please try this. Technical difficulties. There we go. Okay. We're good again.
Okay.
All right. I'm sure there is some button that is like new and improved. Okay.
I'm glad it's on your end.
Yeah, obviously it was my end. Okay. So where was I?
As far as telling clients when it's time to go.
So how I would phrase it is that if you listen to your pet, they're going to tell you. All right. And one of my dogs illustrated this really well. This was the story that I would always tell my clients. So Sammy was a pit bull mix, and he needed help at 15 to cross over. And he was basically getting the equivalent of like doggy dialysis. He was getting fluids in the morning, fluids in the evening. So he'd get up in the morning, and that tail would wag. It was almost like, holy cow, I woke up, and then we'd clean him up, put him out in the bed in the living room, and he would just watch everybody, but his tail was always going. Okay. And then he gets up one morning and he looks at me, and he just rolls over, legs are up in the air, and it's like, I'm done. You need to do something because I can't do this anymore. No tail wag. I cannot think of a clearer thing like, let's go, let's do it today. And when you get towards the end, they have good days and they have bad days.
Yes, that's what makes it so hard.
Yeah, and that's what makes it harder because they have days like, oh my God, what am I doing to this dog? This is horrible. He's dying. And then the next day we're like, oh, gee, what was that? Don't worry about that. I'm good. Where's my ball? I want to play.
It's a roller coaster.
Yeah. So, and it's not like that actually gets you used to the idea that this might happen, because what happens is then they're having a bad time. And so you're wondering, is it they just having a bad day, or is this the end? Let's see.
Right. And I think that's the hardest part. And I think that's why sometimes as a pet professional, your clients even come to you and ask you, when do you know when it's time? Because one day they're okay. Like, it wasn't that long ago that one of mine passed away. And one day she would be up and greeting me at the door, and the next day she would be down. And so it was just this roller coaster, and it was such an emotional roller coaster on top of that, because you're watching this and you think, okay, it's time. And then the next day they wake up and you're like, okay, well, I guess not today. But it's this, like, you think that you're preparing for it, but then you're not really ready for it.
Yeah. For baby, I mean, I knew when it was really time for him, when his demeanor changed. Baby, AKA Grumpy Boy. Okay. Very typical Chihuahua. Okay. So when you think of the poster child for a Chihuahua, that was baby. Okay. And he just became sweet and mellow. And, that was not his personality.
Mhm.
you know. Um, I've had clients' dogs which were like mean their entire lives, okay? And not vicious mean, just grumpy. And then all of a sudden they're sweet and nice and they're like, "Don't you just want to bite me one more time?" And then it would be the conversation with the owners like, "Boy, his personality sure has changed.
Yeah.
He made no effort to kill me today."
Yeah. I've had that.
Right. So again, my answer always is pay attention. Pay attention to them when they're not doing what it is they love to do. If it's a chow hound, and they don't want to eat, they're no longer, and I'm not talking like one day, their appetite is just not there. They just don't feel like eating. I'm talking about dogs. Reno was my German pinscher. He would eat the wallpaper off the wall. He didn't actually have to have taste. Right? 'Cause I don't think he tasted anything in his life because it went too fast from the plate to his stomach.
Yeah. I've had dogs like that. You're like, you're just chew. Just one time, just chew.
Taste the food. I'm actually spending a lot of money on this.
I know. I know.
If I could have fed you paper plates and or cardboard and if that's all it took, I mean, it would be a lot cheaper. But this stuff is really good. Take a little time and eat it for me, please.
I know. I always say like they just opened their mouth and shoved it in and swallowed. And you're like, okay, it's gone. That's all
Yeah.
you get for the night.
Yeah, no, Reno, we would have to actually crate during mealtime. I would,
Really?
he was bad. I would, I would throw his dish into the crate. He'd run in to get it, and it would be gone as I was locking the crate door.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, just, just gone. And then he would turn around and he would snarl and growl, and you could see the drool coming down because the other dogs had food.
Oh my
He
god.
was he was probably the most food aggressive dog I have ever owned in my life.
And he was a min pin?
No, German pinscher.
Oh. Yeah, that's bad.
Yeah, we got him. He was like about 5, 6 years old when his owner died, and he was not. He was an only spoiled dog. We called him the coffee table. We got him. He was. I could have served dinner on his back.
Oh wow.
Yeah, so we had a hard time getting the weight off of that dog. But to make it comfortable for the other dogs, he had to be crated.
Yeah.
So for him, when it was his time, he ended up diabetic, which probably the surprise of no one, right? And he ended up with going into a seizure, and it just totally tanked his glucose levels. He was not in a good spot, so we let him go.
Yeah.
Um, I've only ever had one dog that I could think of in my entire life that went on their own. I mean, there's the trauma of you're not expecting it to finding your dog passed away, but then again, they also took the decision that you didn't have to make the decision for them. And that was Kira. Kira was my Shepherd Malamute. And she was about 15 years old. We went on vacation knowing that this could happen. Okay. And I've always said she had the good grace to go. The last day, as we were on the way to the airport to go home, that we got the call from the vet.
Yeah. I have had 2 pass away at home. And Max was my pit bull mix. He had some medical issues. He had Addison's disease. He had congestive heart failure and who knows what else. But he was my baby. And so I was doing anything that I could to hang on to him. And I came home from work that morning and you could tell like he wasn't quite himself. And so I laid with him for a little bit and then I let him know like I got to go upstairs. I got to go to bed because I had to work that night. And he woke me up out of a sound sleep, and he actually made his way up the stairs and woke me up standing in the doorway. And I can just tell in his eyes, it wasn't right. So I called the vet to say that we're on the way. And I went to pick him up because at this point he had walked in the room and then laid down. So I went to go pick him up, and I laid him on the bed so I could rearrange my arms and get a better hold of him. And that's when he took his last breath and passed away in my arms. And at the time it was absolutely devastating. But after I was able to process it, I realized how beautiful it was that he made it up to come say goodbye to me, in his own way, and that he was able to pass in my arms and take that last breath. So there's times I could talk about it and it's absolutely fine, and there's times I can talk about it and it still makes me tear up. And it's been 14 years now, but it brought upon so much peace when I was able to finally grieve through it and then look back on it and realize how beautiful that really was.
Yeah, I think anybody who's listening can absolutely look at every single pet they have owned and tell you how they crossed over.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's one of those you're never going to forget. They're a piece of your heart.
Yeah. All right. So that actually, let's talk about something else before we get into the next. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
All right. So Kate and I just launched a class. Okay. The class that I was supposed to do at Pasadena, and then Pasadena canceled.
Yeah.
And I will not be making it to the new date in July. It's just the dates are not working for me. But I also will be teaching this class live in Tacoma and at the Rocky Mountain Show, the one in Colorado. And that's as far as we've gotten with the schedule, but we do now have it available online. All right. So it's an emergency and disaster program. It's 4-ish hours of online education. So it's study at your own pace. There are accountability calls. So if you don't know what they are, you can download. There is a downloadable template for the plan, right? It's still a lot of work to do it as easy as we've made it for you. It is still a lot of work. So what accountability, sometimes they're called co-working calls, is that we all go on Zoom and we don't talk to each other. We just sit there and work knowing that everybody else there is working. Accountability. Okay. So that's available. It's available on positiveed.com. It's under Spirited Dog Programs. It's $247. It's $247 well spent for your well-being and peace of mind. Okay. Back to the show, folks.
Yes.
Okay. So then, which always brings us to how do you process this? Because we all process things differently. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
For as my dogs got older, when they were boarded, I specifically told them, do not do CPR on them. If they go, because I've had this quote said exactly to me during grooming. It's going to really suck if that happens to you, and I'm sorry. Do not do CPR on this dog. The younger dogs, yeah, not this dog. Okay. Spirit, we had to let go. Ricky was a shock. When we let him go. Ricky was my golden retriever. So there's different ways we process, and each incident is it's still a totally different response from the incident before.
Mm-hmm.
Right? So if we go back to baby, like I said, my husband could have gone right to. I could have drove that man right over to the emergency room. Okay, but I was okay with it because I knew this was a long time coming.
Right.
Okay, and it took him a while, and baby's gone. Baby's going to be gone oh my God, this is a long time. Maybe he's got to be gone at least 10 years, at least 10 years. And it took my husband several years to come to the realization, boy, I should have done that sooner.
Yeah.
Um, when Spirit passed, we were well prepared for Spirit going.
Mhm.
He had seizures. He had an anal tumor, which was we couldn't operate. If Spirit was a younger dog, we could have operated. But because he was older and he had seizures, they were like, "There's nothing we can do." But that tumor was going to burst at some point. Okay. And then if we didn't put him down, he would literally bleed out. And that's a terrible way to go.
Yeah.
I would be checking his gums all the time. And the second those gums went pale, off to the vet we went. They were well aware of the situation, what was going on, and we took care of it. I mean, it was still difficult, but we were in the place where we were looking for the pale gums because we knew we had to go and do this. Okay, not that that made it easier on either one of us. Ricky put me in shock. Right. He had a cancer screening not 6 months before. He's a golden retriever. And then 6 months later, he has pronounce it for me, Kate.
Hemangiosarcoma.
Yeah, of the heart.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, the big one. All right. And that moves fast he was this healthy dog. I mean, it wasn't for the fact that he was in perfect shape. His blood work was good. He had the cancer screening. And then we come back from Atlanta Pet Fair and he collapses. And he was gone within 2 weeks. And
Wow.
the same deal, we watched him carefully for those signs. And I took 2 weeks off from work. I called up my clients and said, I'm not sure when I'm going to be rescheduling, but my dog is dying and I'm staying with my dog. I did not lose a single client over that, mind you.
I would hope not.
Yeah.
Yeah. I will have to say, so I had a shepherd mix, and she was older, and I had just had that experience with Max, and that's when they came to me and said, well, her spleen looks like it's enlarged. She was 13. She was not herself at that point. So I made the decision for her. And like you said, as far as processing things and people processing it differently, I will have to say it took me a really long time. There was many years after that I still questioned, did I do it too soon?
Yeah.
Did I do it too soon? There was like that guilt that came with it.
Or did I take too long to do it? Because we had that with Sugar, who had the same thing with the spleen. And you know what? We operated. And honestly and truly, that's probably one of the biggest regrets I have is trying to extend it by doing the surgery where cancer had already spread, spread throughout the body. And I put this dog unnecessarily through surgery afterwards.
Right. Yeah. And that's where because of everything that I had just gone through, because Max, I lost in January and this was August with her of the same year. And I thought, I'm not putting her through all that. If she was younger, it would be fine. But at that age, I wasn't going to put her through all that. But that one was tough too, because for a really long time, I thought, well, what if I would have waited one more day to see if she would have pepped up, but at the same time,
So I guess what we want to finish up with really is that don't beat yourself up over the decisions you've made.
Right.
Okay. And pay attention. Pay attention to your pets. Pay attention to your clients' pets. If you can have that conversation with the clients, that's great. Right. I was mobile. I can remember going to a client's house, a golden retriever, and I get there and I'm like, she's not looking good. She's a 14-year-old golden retriever. And I get there and I look at the gums, and the gums are pale, and I'm like, I can't groom her today. And I flip up the gums. Her gums are pale. I says, will you need to take her to a vet and then call me and we will reschedule. All right. And I knew I was saying goodbye to her. I knew it. Knew it in my heart I was saying goodbye. Gave her a hug, gave her a kiss, and then mom had brought her to the vet where they made the decision to let her go.
Yeah.
So, but again, now what happens afterwards when, how you process? First of all, it's talking to your fellow professionals who understand. Okay. Because we could all meet up at a trade show and we could just pass stories back and forth of all of our personal pets.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So finding people to talk to. All right. Um, recognize, if you don't recognize in yourself, recognize in other people when they're having trouble doing it on their own.
Mm-hmm.
Right. Fortunately, my husband bounced back fairly quickly, but I was watching him like a hawk. And like I said, I could have taken that man to the ER right afterwards.
Yeah. It's a lot out of you. An emotional it is an emotional shock.
There are grief counselors who
Mhm.
specialize in this. When I lived in Connecticut, there was a mobile vet. And what she ended up doing is she became all she did was euthanize.
Mhm.
All right.
I give those vets a lot of credit. I don't know how they do that.
She went on to become a grief counselor, a veterinarian grief counselor. And that's where she saw her calling. I gave her mad props because that is not something I could do. But
No.
that was her job. And I was like, but the point being is there are grief counselors, people who can help you. They can be online, they can be in person. There's churches, there's social worker, there's a lot of opportunities. And if you need help and you're not sure where to ask, then ask one of your pet professional friends. All right, because when you're a step out from the situation, okay, you could see things a little clearly and understand what that person needs. And does that make sense, Kate?
It does make sense.
Okay.
And I think people need to know that we already know grieving a pet is no different than grieving a human.
Hmm.
It's okay. It's okay to take that day off. It's okay to grieve through that. And I know I heard it, so I'm sure that there's probably still people out there that still hear it, but I was even told at that point in time, well, it's just a dog. No, it's
Yeah,
not just
hold
a
on, hold on, hold on.
dog.
Okay.
I
All
know.
right, he rolled all the way back.
I know. And so it's okay to grieve. It's okay to grieve no matter what anybody says to you. So, yeah.
Yeah, I've had family members with that. And well, two of my family members. The other two brothers were fine. But yeah, I've heard the same thing. Well, it's just a dog. Get over it.
Mhm. Right. But now we have the science to support that no, we don't just get over it. It's not just a dog. We still have to go through a grieving process.
Yeah. And we might be saying dog, but you know what? We mean all pets. The
Right.
cat, the bird, um,
Rabbit.
snake, rabbits, whatever your pet is.
Mhm.
Okay. So we're up on our half hour. Will we be back next week? I don't know.
I think so.
Let's see. And again, we are always looking for topics. Well, yes, we will. So we will see everybody next week, and we would love to hear what it is you want to talk about.
Yes.